Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Synergy Open Forum training. And I welcome you all. If you have run into issues or questions or want to just up level from where you've been working in the program, then please do type them in the chat or in the QA box. Lucy's here with me today, and she will be helping me with the questions. I just opened my program. As you all know, this is where it starts. So, Lucy, will you please let me know if any questions pop up? Otherwise, I will just start with the questions that came in. There was a question about how can I save a case and find it later on? There were some cases were saved and then the user couldn't find them. So the easiest way, of course, if you have properly saved your cases, then you will go to patient management. This is where I always go. I'm sure you can also access it from the icon here. I would go to view patients, and you see all my cases are here. I have maybe over 100 cases now, so it's not always easy or convenient to scroll to find a patient. So the way you would find them, the way I tend to find them, I don't remember the last time I consulted with them. So I don't use the consultation date field, but these are all active fields. And you can search by consultation date, first name, last name, or remedies given. So I would, for example, if I'm looking for somebody whose name starts with V, I would just type V and it would pull up all my cases starting with V. If you want to search by last name, you can do that as well. So that's like the simplest way to save and search for a case later on. I'm assuming that when you're saving cases, you are getting, you will get a pop-up here in the lower left corner of your screen that says either patient saved successfully or patient updated successfully, depending on what you did. If you're saving for the first time, it will say saved, but then when you go back, if you save as a new session, it will probably say save. If you update an existing session, it will say updated successfully. You should get that big green pop-up that says that case saved, because once you get that, your cases will show up under view patients. Let me know. I know I can see, Rick, that you are here in the session. So let me know if that helps and that is what you have been doing and you still can't find your patients, and we can always come back to this question and look at it a little bit in depth more. I mean, there's probably either an issue with saving, because if it's saved, there's nowhere else for it to go. It will show up here. The other thing might be, it occurs to me as I speak, is that cases will not save unless you are logged into the patient management system. So let me move my Zoom bar here and minimize us. You see here, this is your patient management login, and I'm currently logged in, which is why it gives me the logout option. So make sure you are logged in, and that allows you access to the patient management system, which then allows you to save and access your cases. That's another reason why you may not be finding your cases.
Roopali, another question is somebody wants to know how to also find the clipboard within the chart.
Of course, okay. So I will open one of my here. So you see, when you open an existing patient, it is set to default to scroll down all the way to the 2 sessions or as many sessions as you have with that patient. So it brings you to your sessions, but you see all of those fields are still active up here. But it assumes that it's an existing patient, you have sessions stored, so it will scroll down. You can choose the session that you are looking for. In general, your latest sessions will be on the top and the older sessions will be in bottom, in chronological order. So assuming that you want the last one, you're going to click on it, and what happens is it goes to the left-hand pane, and you will see that all your clipboards are now open that are associated with that session. If you change sessions, you see I lost a clipboard. I only had 2 clipboards in that first session. And then in my next session, I actually added another clipboard. So you can basically, when you click on them, your clipboards will pop up on this left main pane. You can click on whichever clipboard you like, and your clipboard will be there. You can now modify this clipboard, you can add to it, you can delete it, you can do analysis on it, filter, change your strategy, etc., etc. And then when you go to close the case, actually not even when you go to close the case, as soon as you open a clipboard, you can see I have 2 options now on my patient chart. Because of changes I might have made on my clipboard, I can either save it as a new session with those clipboards, and you can choose which clipboards from this session you want to carry over into this next session, or you can update this clipboard, in which case it will not save it as a new session line here. You see, I could add another line with my modifications, or I could just modify this line. So this would be an update. If I just want to keep this session, but update these clipboards, maybe get rid of one, clean up the other one, and I could just update it as part of the work on this same session. Or there might be material changes and I want to keep track of every step, then I would save it as a new session. And then, of course, I'm not doing anything. So I'm going to close my clipboards. When I close the patient file, you can close it from here and leave your patient management system open, or you can just close the whole thing. It doesn't give you a save message because you didn't do anything. And your case is still back there exactly as it was. So that's how you would access the clipboards in a saved case, in a saved session in that case.
Roopali, we have another question. Manuela is asking, what happens if my computer crashes and I need to reinstall? Will the patient file still be there?
So I cannot stress this enough, and I tell this to everyone every time. And I have access to more technical support than an average user because I could just call someone in the company. But even so, I do backups of my cases all the time. Sometimes, the work you put in for a patient, building good clipboards and good rubrics and looking for rubrics, it's a lot of time and a lot of effort. And nobody has a photogenic memory to just remember everything they did. So it really pinches to lose cases or lose work. And so depending on the volume of work that you're doing with your patients and in your clinic, in your practice, I would urge you to back up your cases at least once a month, if not more frequently. You can always override old backups, so it's always just the one backup, but the eventuality, in which your program crashes and you need a reinstall, that is when you will really thank yourself for having those case backups. Because in general, you see, if if you, let's say you update your OS, and that causes some glitch with the program. Your database and your program files are still accessible. And those cases, the cases for reasons of privacy and encryption are actually stored inside the program. Your case backup is stored outside the program, preferably also in, outside the program in the same machine, but also outside the program in a external saving device, a hard disk or whatever, pen drive, whatever you have. But in the event that something goes wrong with the program, but your computer is still functioning fine, we can go in and extract your cases from within the program files on your hard drive. But if your computer crashes and everything gets messed up to the point that there is nothing retrievable and everything has to be reinstalled, in that case, we cannot save your case because the files were either corrupted or lost in that crash. And that's when your program gets reinstalled, you can always just restore your backup and you will have all your cases back. I mean, maybe the last time you backed up was last week and you did some work this past week. So you might lose some work, but you will not lose everything. You will lose a small fraction of what you have in the program. And so really, really, please back up, get comfortable with backing up and make it a habit.
And Roopali, if you could just explain the difference between backing up and restoring. User asked that question.
Okay, sure. Your backup and restore options are always under user preferences. When you open user preferences, move this zoom. There should be a way to minimize the zoom bar, I feel. All the way at the bottom is backup restore cases. So here we go. You will click on this. You have the option to backup or restore. It also says what my login, it tells you your login for your patient management system. So I'm going to click on backup. You see, this is my last backup that it opened up. I name them. I have a different machine for my clinic, which is an Air. So it's a MacBook Air, and this is a MacBook Pro, the one that I'm working on now. So I save my backups. I put a little name that shows, which machine that backup came from and the date that that backup was made. So this is my last backup. When you click on backup, it's going to take you to your backup folder. So I'm just going to go here. I'm going to show you. So my backup is on my desktop and also on an external hard drive, which I should back up more often. But it also goes to my time machine, which is how I back up all the contents of this machine. So I have backups. I do keep all my old backups. I'm a little bit of a pack rat. I should probably get rid of 2022. But they're organized by year. And then this year, I have the latest backups are from 3/21 and it's 4/5. So I should probably back up at some point. And you can see MBP, MBA, my MBA backups tend to lag behind, but basically what I can do, so I will show you what to do. You can, when you do it the first time, it will just open up your Finder or your file manager, depending on what kind of machine you're using. You're going to create a new folder. You can create this folder anywhere in your documents, on your desktop, wherever you want, in your downloads. You're going to name that folder. So I'm going to just call it the demo folder. I always put a date. So it tells me which date it's from. I'm going to say create. And it created this new folder here. So now I'm going to click on this folder. And when I say backup, this folder is the one that's opened, and I'm going to say backup, and it tells you, it shows you that I have 127 case files, and it's now backing them up. So here now, and it tells you your exact file address where you created this backup. And now it's done. And this backup is now outside the program on my desktop. You see here, it's on my desktop under my files where I wanted them with that file name. And when I go to restore, so let's say I have done a lot of work on this machine. This is my home machine. I would go back to my my clinic machine, and I would click on restore. And when I click on restore, it would ask me which backup I want to restore. It's going to open up that file manager file box again. And I'm going to tell it to restore from this backup, this last backup that I did today. And what this will do is it will take all my cases from this machine and put them on that machine. I do back up to iCloud as well, so my desktops are synchronized. So I can, once I create this file on my desktop, it shows up automatically on my desktop in the other computer. If you don't have some kind of auto synchronization between machines, assuming you want to back up from one machine to another, you can always save this file on a pen drive and then transfer it or airdrop it, or other ways in which you can access that file on another machine. And if you're just restoring a backup because your machine crashed, then obviously you just, you have that on some device that you're going to restore it from. When you click restore, it's going to ask where you want to restore from. You're going to indicate the folder. And when you indicate the folder, because you also have the option just to restore one or two cases or all the cases, you actually, if you're restoring because you crashed, you're going to have to indicate to the computer, which basically means highlight all the cases you want restored. Sometimes you've only worked or changed a couple of cases, in which case I don't need to restore the whole thing. I will just ask it to restore those two cases, which actually, have gone through changes. So I hope that helps. Let me know if someone wants to see an actual restore, and I can try that. Okay, so moving on then. So,
Oh, before you move on,
okay.
they would like to see a restore.
Oh, okay. So I'm trying to see. What can I do with a restore? Okay, here. So here's a demo file that I don't mind deleting. So what I will do is, you can see that this file, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say delete. And there, it's going to ask me if I want to, and I will say yes. And now that file is gone from my patient management system. So what I can do now is I can come back, go to user preferences and say restore. And now you can see it's showing me the demo backup because that was my last backup. So what I can do was I can click on this file, which is the one I just deleted, so it's not in the program. And I'm going to say restore. You say cases restored successfully. It will ask you to restart. That's always better, but you don't have to. And I'm now going to show you that file should be back. You see here, it's back. Let me do something else. I will also show you another version of restore. So in this case, the file was actually deleted. And so when I asked the program to restore that file back, it checks my patient management case, like all the files in there, sees that this file doesn't exist and puts the file back. Now, if I ask it to restore, assuming you have an old case already, and then you changed it on another machine. So I'm going to show you that scenario. So now let's say I ask to restore a file that already exists in my patient management system. So when I say restore, it doesn't because I haven't made changes. So let's try something else. You see? Okay. So when you try to restore a patient where the patient file already exists, it will give you this pop-up, this message, patient file with the same name existing. You have to choose, do you want to skip this restore, assuming you're restoring 10 and it found one where the same name is there. You can replace the current file with the old file, or you can say copy, which means it will create a second copy of that patient. So this is very useful, for example, because yeah, I have 127 files here. Most are individuals. So let's say there's 100 cases. Let's say I worked on 10 cases, and they're all over the place. When you back up, it's going to back up everything. When you restore, you can either hunt through and look for those 10 cases that you worked on and ask the program just to restore those 10. If you don't want to hunt through, which is, you have to go through the list, find the 10, remember which 10. If you just click restore, then off that 127 that I have, if I only worked on 10, 117 of those cases will be the same cases with no changes. So it's going to pop up and it's going to say, patients already exist. Do you want to skip or replace or copy? If you're restoring an entire backup, don't ever say copy, because what you'll end up with is 127 times 2 files, of which 117 will just be duplicates. So you don't want that. You're going to say replace, because what it will do is it will replace this backup with all the similar named files in your current patient management. So that means all the new files will replace the old files. And it doesn't matter that 117 are the same, they will still say the same, but the 10 that you worked on will now be the new 10 instead of the old 10. So you can do skip if you remember those 10 people, and then but you would have to click skip on 117. So to me, replace is always the best option. And so I'm just going to say skip, because obviously I'm just doing this for demo purposes. And so then, even though you get a restored successfully message, which you will if you are restoring, in my case right now for this moment, it doesn't really mean anything because nothing changed. Any other questions, Lucy, around this whole saving, backing up, restoring?
No more questions about that.
Okay.
I did get a different question. Manuela, I think I understood your question correctly. She was wondering how to best research a remedy. And she said, if you could walk me through how to find morphia.
Morphia? Morphine?
Yeah, morphia.
Okay.
And reference library. Manuela, let me know if
Yeah,
it's
and actually, so let
different.
me show how to do that. And then there is also another question that was sent in about researching remedies. So we'll just work on that for the next few minutes. So when you're researching remedies, there are multiple ways. It really depends on what you are looking for. It always depends. The question that you're going to ask and will dictate where you go in the program and the answer that you get. So if you're looking for a broader research about a remedy that you don't know very well, you will come to remedies. This is how I do it. There are other ways to do it as well. You can just type the remedy name here, but I would come to remedies and I would type the name of the remedy. So you can just type the first few letters. You can type as much or, um, more. You can type the complete name. So I typed, if you're looking for morphia, which I assume to mean morphine, there are a few different remedies. So morphine and some of the salts of morphine also. You can see here. So morphinum would be morphia. And that's your base remedy. That's the alkaloid extracted from the plant. When you click on the plus sign to the left of the remedy, it will tell you, it will show you all of the references that you have in your library that have an entry, and it's alphabetical order. So when I get to Y, I know that's the end. These are all of the references in my library that have an entry on morphine. So you can, depending on your preference, if you know some of these authors, you can read them all. More power to you. I have my favorite authors, and so I think I just reinstalled my program or I changed something. But generally, if you have, let's come here, and I want to show you what would happen. Okay, so I have my 4 favorite books pinned up here. When you go to remedies and you're looking at, so we were looking at morphine. If I see that it starts from Allen or any book starting with A, and my 4 favorite, that means that my 4 favorite books don't have an entry on morphine. Otherwise, your favorite books that you have pinned, again, let's go back to preferences. Here in reference library settings, you can see these are my 4 favorite books. None of these had an entry, but generally, if your favorite books have an entry on the remedy that you are researching, they will be all the way up top. They will stay pinned to the top. You can come down here. If you're looking for a particular author, you don't have to scroll. Morphine is still fairly well written about, but there are other remedies, very popular, polycrest, where you can get a lot of screens of references. Then you can just come down, for example, here, and I can then type the first few letters of the author that I'm looking for. And I typed SAN, and it went to Sankaran's plants. So you can navigate up and down using the first few letters of the author that you're looking for on the keyboard, and it will take you there. You don't have to, like I'm doing, you don't have to scroll back and forth. Also, you can see that there are 4 salts: morphine sulfate, morphine aceticum, muriaticum, sulfuricum. And I would expect that there aren't that many references. So yeah, you can see that there's only about 8 for morphine muriaticum. That's how I would search up a remedy that I didn't know much about. I was going in for a broad search. And in a broad search, it will give you everything that's available on the remedy. If you're trying to refine a search, you can always, so the other question is, how can I look for all the symptoms in the repertory for Medusa with edema in it? So the way I would look, so this is a much more specific search. You're looking within the remedy for all the rubrics relating to edema. So the way I would approach this search is to type edema, and then because edema can be expressed by other words, I would also put swelling, which will also capture swollen. And I would also put enlarged. And then I would come up here in my filter. And I'm looking for rubrics. This user wants rubrics, not references. So this is a repertory search. And so I would come to remedies and I would type Medusa. So I'm going to hit apply. I will also not run a reference library search because there's no point. I will just run a repertory search and I will click, and here we go. So you will get a search result from all of the repertories that you have access to in your program. If you prefer a particular repertory, then you can also filter, add over here. We just put a remedy filter. You can also put a repertory filter and just say, look in this particular repertory. You can see the repertories are all here. You can choose your repertory, and so then that way you don't get a ton of results. But you can see the results are here for Medusa. Let's look at the complete. That's an older complete that I've been working with for some cases. But you see it's generally in eyes, ears, face, and generalities. And these are, so you can see swelling edematous, swelling edematous. So there are no delusions enlarged, which is not really edema, but it's sort of related. It's a mental symptom. So this is how I would do it to search within the remedy. The other, one other idea I have to search within the remedy would be to come here. So let's use a more recent repertory. You could come here. Well, this would do it for everything, but you could, let's say you're looking in a specific section, although this is just all the symptoms that you wanted with edema. In that case, I would go here. But if you were just, let's say, in eyes and you wanted to see if there was any edema here, you could always come here, filter to Medusa, apply. And you could see them here, but this is by section. This is not as complete as doing it through the global search and then getting all the results from all the sections in all the repertories. So that's what I would do. The other thing is to come here in advanced search, depending on, how complicated or how in-depth you are researching remedies, because you could come here in search remedies, or you could come here and compare remedies. In search remedies, you could filter for a remedy, you could choose your repertory, you could choose all sections or a single section. And then you could say, so here in global search, you will get all rubrics, regardless of the size of the rubric. But here you could limit and say, I want, single remedy rubrics only for this remedy. So you want only those rubrics in which this is the only remedy in that rubric. Or you want small rubrics. So I want 10 or less remedies. Give me all those remedies for this. Give me all those rubrics for this remedy. Or, you can, so basically it goes up from there. You could use this function, which is, somewhat different from what you get here, which is a big grab. And then compare remedies is even more specific. Here you could compare, I don't know, let's say you want to compare Medusa with sepia. So you could come in here. Let me show you this. So you could say Medusa, apply, and Medusa comes up here. Then I will add sepia. And apply. And you're saying, I want to see all the mental symptoms of medusa that are not in sepia. So we would do this. Actually, let's not do mental symptoms because those are probably big and this will take a long time. Let's look at the head symptoms for medusa that are individual to medusa and not in sepia. And you could add more remedies here. So you could go here and say, which one should we pick? I'm just gonna pick musca, although they're not related. But so show me the head symptoms of medusa that are individual to medusa, but not in sepia or musca domestica. Or imagine there were 3 related remedies you were considering, and you want to match, and there can be any number of remedies in the rubrics. And then you're going to, if now I click on search, it's going to override my earlier search with edema. Let's say I want to save that search for later reference, then don't click on search, then you're going to click on the plus button. Every time you run a search, whether in global search or in any of these advanced searches, if you click the plus button, it runs it as a new search and it will save your old search. So no rubric found, because I guess those are too complicated. So let's run. I'm going to go here and I'm going to remove musca. Apply. And let's try this now. And now I'm going to hit search because I don't want to keep that old failed search. Oh, wonder why that's happening. Let's oh, I wonder. Oh, that's because okay, I know why that's happening, because the default, my top repertory pinned here is a new repertory that's coming out. And Andre Sane probably does not have any rubrics for Medusa. So that might be the reason. So let's choose the complete and let's choose head and we will run the search again. And now the search runs. So these are the head symptoms for Medusa and sepia. I think I forgot to change. Yes. So now if I do this and choose, let's run the mind. So now I'm going to look at the mind symptoms of Medusa. There are Medusa symptoms, but not sepia symptoms. I will do this as a plus. And you see it runs quite quickly, actually. So these are mental symptoms of Medusa that are not in sepia. So it's very useful. I find this feature very useful to compare 2 closely related remedies that I might be considering for the patient. And what this allows you to do is to isolate the symptoms in any section. But specifically for me, understanding the patient and then knowing what are the unique mind symptoms of Medusa that you don't see in sepia, and what are the unique mind symptoms of sepia that you don't see in Medusa. And it gives you really the exclusive picture of that remedy, separate from this other remedy that you're considering. And then it allows you to match your patient's picture much better between those 2 remedies, because there might be a lot of overlap. They're both C remedies, so you might have a lot of overlap. But this gives you the individual specific picture that's separate, or those pieces of the picture that are separate from this other remedy that you're considering. So this is a deeper level of research within a remedy, either if you use a single remedy or if you're actually comparing remedies. But even comparing remedies can help you understand one remedy better. For example, looking at, pulsatilla and staph to me are very closely related remedies, Staphysagrria. you can understand each better by comparing them against each other. And this function is really useful. This piece here is really useful to do that. Okay, I think unless there are more questions about researching or learning or looking at remedies, there was another question that I want to answer that came in, Lucy. So let me know.
We did have somebody ask, and this sort of relates to what you're doing right now. How do you do a starting point with a condition? Like if you have ulcerative colitis, you're using the word colitis. Actually, morphea is a skin condition, localized scleroderma. I looked it up. And so if you're starting with a condition name, if you could give some words of advice about how to find the right rubrics if you're using a diagnostic term.
Okay, so this is okay. So a little bit of how I answer this question goes into my personal preferences as a homeopath, and how I look at cases. So in general, when I'm starting with a condition, that is only one aspect of the case for me. So I will have a certain other pieces of information about that patient, specifically their mind symptoms, their generalities, any concomitants. And then I want to make sure then that I have a good set of rubrics for the condition that they've come with. But even with that, I would counsel everybody, even when you come with a condition in mind, you have to know the symptoms that your patient experiences in that condition. Not, I mean, I'm going to be speaking about IBS as a condition, for example, at the Joint American Homeopathic Conference. But the cases I'm presenting, all of them had different symptoms within IBS. And so you really have to individualize the case, even when you're starting with a condition. Unless you're just researching the condition and you're looking at different rubrics that come within that condition, I would, if it's related to a case, I would individualize that diagnosis. And then I would repertorize those individualized symptoms within that diagnosis. I mean, there are, for example, I'm trying to think of the ways that you would research a clinical condition. So you can certainly type it up here, and you can see what comes. There will be general and common symptoms for that condition, which you can also type up or look up in the repertory. The third thing I would recommend is to come up here and look for one of the clinical repertories. And you can, Murphy's is a good clinical one. There's a Marsh. Massimo has a clinical one, but it's going to go away. And then Suggesta is going to have a clinical section instead. But you can, come in here and what was the condition? So I think you would go to skin, come up here, and then you can see generally, I don't know if scleroderma will be here. Here we go, scleroderma. And this will show you the remedies. I'm just holding down the space bar to see the remedies briefly. And this will show you the remedies for that. But along with that, there will be other symptoms. Just the name of that diagnosis will only give you a set of remedies. You will still need other supporting symptoms about that particular condition, as much as mental and concomitants and generalities to be able to differentiate between those 38 remedies for scleroderma. So just having the name of the diagnosis, usually in my perspective, this is just completely me. I don't think it's so useful. You need all these other pieces to individualize the case. The more individualized your case and analysis is, the more useful that remedy might be. So this is what I would suggest. Now, I don't know if I answered the question correctly, but if there's follow-up questions on this, I'm happy to provide perspective, more perspective.
None right now.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to actually create a quick clipboard. Because there is a question about how to upgrade or add intensity to rubrics, and somebody is doing it and it doesn't appear to be changing. So here we go. So here are rubrics for a made-up case, which I just put in. And let's say that, this person really doesn't like it when they're corrected or scolded. So you want to you want to add intensity to this. So let's say I put a 4. You see, it changed. The repetization changed. What it will do is you have to have one thing set up, but when you change the intensity on a rubric, it will go right to the top, because the default in your clipboard is that your rubrics will be organized by grade. So the higher graded rubrics will pop to the top, and then it will be in order. The other thing you have to make sure is that you choose most rubrics considering intensity as your strategy, because you are adding intensity to the rubrics. So you have to set that up as your strategy by which the repetization will be organized. So you say, okay. And now if I take this off and I go to 0, you can see that the repetization changes. It's not changing for the top 3 or 4 remedies that are popping up, but for the lesser remedies in the repetization, things are moving back and forth depending on what you grade up. So you see it flips, things flip around. But generally, like and calc seem to be strongly indicated, so they don't move much from the top. I don't know. Actually, I don't know if Murphy's is, Murphy has, but let's say we put scleroderma up also as a 4. So things are shifting, but Natrimure was number 3. Now sulf is number 3 because we put a skin condition up there as the strongest thing. So that popped up because of sulfur. Some things moved down. So things will change. But if you feel that you are adding intensity to your rubrics and nothing is happening here, then you have to come here on this strategy, apply strategy. Make sure your strategy is set to most rubrics considering intensity. And that's when your repetization will show the effect of the grades you're adding to your rubrics. Okay. Any other questions, Lucy? Or I can go on.
You can go on. No more questions right now.
Okay. So the other question here is, how would one use elimination? So elimination is really about saying that this is the most important thing in my patient. It can be one thing or two things. but generally on a clipboard, we might have 8 or 10 rubrics. Some will be very broad rubrics, some will be medium-sized rubrics, and some will be smaller rubrics. But in all of those rubrics, you're going to say that this one thing is the most important, and I cannot have a remedy that doesn't have this one thing. So what you want to do is eliminate all the remedies from your analysis that don't have that one thing that is super important, or at least the most important. So what in this case, for example, let's say that your skin condition is the most important. Every remedy that comes to you as a possibility has to have scleroderma as an issue. Now, this is a slightly larger rubric. So it, and you know, the other rubrics are smaller. In general, you have to make sure that when you're eliminating, the rubric that you're eliminating by or with is generally smaller than the rubrics that you are using to eliminate from. So in this case, let's say I decide that this kind of, you know, can't stand reproaches to their honor, admonition aggravates, really gets bugged if somebody points out some mistake or scolds them or corrects them. Let's say this is the quality that's most important. It stands out, and you wouldn't prescribe without it. So I'm just making this up, but because that is the smallest rubric here, you cannot, remember, you cannot take a more general quality, such as periodicity, for example, which has probably got like 800 remedies in it. You cannot eliminate by that. You have to eliminate by something very specific that you insist on having in the remedy that you give. So generally, the more specific that thing is, the smaller that rubric will be, because fewer remedies will have that very specific thing. You want to eliminate using a rubric that's smaller from a collection of rubrics that are larger. And that's when your elimination will work properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these. I held down the shift key and just pick the top and the bottom. It selects all your rubrics. And now I'm going to just drag them to this plus sign here. When I click on the plus sign, you can see that all of these rubrics are in here. And now I'm going to tell the program I want to eliminate by this rubric. The rubric that you're going to eliminate by, and it can be more than one, will go to the bottom. So this is your group of remedies, and you're going to eliminate everything that doesn't have mind, admonition, aggravates. Already, when I click and make this negative as the elimination rubric, you can see that my pool was 137 remedies, which is a combination of these 3 rubrics, and with some overlaps, obviously. So that's why it's 137. And 10 remedies were eliminated. So what you can, well, not eliminated, they came out of that elimination. And so I can say show graph. When I say show graph, it shows me the 10 remedies that have admonition aggravates, which is right up here. You can see every remedy has admonition aggravates to some extent or another. And then it lays out how these remedies fall with the other rubrics. So what I will do is I will drag that to the bottom. So, oh, I don't know if it will let me do that. But what I'd like to do is, generally have my eliminated rubric at the bottom and then see how it falls with the other rubrics up top. So I would probably order the clipboard like that earlier. But you can now see lycopodium is still at the top, calc, natrimur, calc. It's mostly, it's a collection, it's not very specific clipboard. And this is a bunch of polycrest here. But you also have Salix fragilis, you have nitric acid. So you can look based on your other rubrics, you can choose, you know, which one you would pick, but any of these that you pick will have that quality that you insist on. So that's how elimination works. Generally, the plus and the question was, how does the plus and minus work also? So what, people would do is you would take all of your general rubrics or the broader rubrics and put them in the plus, and then the one that you're going to eliminate by, you would put in the minus. But to me, it's a quicker thing to just dump them all in the plus and then change the sign. So it does the same thing. You can do it either way. So that is how elimination works. And it's useful. It can be quite useful to look at, especially we just picked random rubrics because I was showing scleroderm grading. But if you had some bigger rubrics here, I don't know, anxiety or other big like skin pain rubrics, which can be very big, then it can be useful to say, okay, I really need this quality in all of them. So this is what I can eliminate by, and let me see the consideration set of remedies that comes up. Okay. So I think I covered everything. There's one small thing about large rubrics with lots of remedies. So for example, even the first one, 286, it's much more now in a 2022 or 2023. This is a 2005 complete. What we have done is we have truncated, I think we have truncated the remedies at 50. Lucy, correct me if I'm wrong. So rubrics with remedies 50 and below, you see all the remedies. With rubrics greater than 50 remedies, we truncate them just so that you can navigate faster through the repertory. And then, I mean, if you want to, you can always see, more. But you see what happens now. If I have this view turned on as the default, I only see one rubric in my pane. And it can imagine if these were all filled with remedies, all this, like night 459. Okay, you see, so I'm going to keep scrolling and scrolling, and you'll see now. Do you see what the more data that is showing up, the scrolling becomes shorter, like slower, and you'll see like more glitchy scrolling also. It's still not happening on my machine because I only like opened up a few rubrics, but you see it takes a while to load. There was a blank space. You see here? So we did this so that the program, you can navigate through the program faster. Not everyone needs to see every remedy for every rubric. You just want to get to the rubric you want. And so you can always, click on this to see the rest of the remedies. And that was really the reason we did this. I think it's a good suggestion, and maybe we can put it here where, you can see no remedies, all remedies, and then we can say, all remedies regardless of rubric size. And if you turn that on, then all your things are turned on all the time, all the remedies. It will make navigation a little bit slower because it will have to load, you see there. So it will have to load up. The more data that the program has to load every second, the longer it's going to take. So that's the only reason we did that. And a lot of people like it, but it might be a good idea to have an option where if you want your remedies, all your remedies showing all the time, you can turn that on. So we will take that back and send it as a suggestion to the technical team. We're exactly at time. Thank thank you everyone for coming and for all your wonderful questions. I can't, sorry, excuse, I don't know where the time went. And it's a great idea for you guys, for anyone who's planning to come, to send suggestions ahead of time. And that's it for today. Thank you for coming. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next month.